Hey everybody, this is Aaron Berk at Harlan J. Berk Limited. I want to talk today a little bit about Greek vases. Lots of questions about Greek vases, some Greek, Roman, Etruscan, South Italian, things like that. So I'm going to go through today a little bit of the vases that I have. So I kind of grabbed a small array of material around and I wanted to kind of go through it little by little. So I'm going to start out with Etruscan vases. So Etruscan vases, usually from this period with this black volcanic clay. It's called bucaro or bucaro, and it comes in all different shapes and sizes. A lot of times you get these kinds of cups with these little archaic faces in them and things like that. And these are dated to the 6th century BC. And I once had a hydrea, which is a very large vase, and it was very ornate with all kinds of figures molded into it, which is quite interesting. So, but this is typically what you'll see in the Etruscan period. And I'm going to jump a little bit ahead here because this is a 4th century Etruscan piece. So you can see they're not using the black volcanic clay, but just regular ceramic. And this is a pouring vessel. 4th century BC. And as far as costs go, something like this, because it has the face, it would probably run around, $600 to $800. So they're not really expensive. It doesn't have the face. They can be around $500. Depends on how nice it is. A larger one like this might cost between $800 and $1,200. And a piece like this, a little bit more unusual. It's actually the first one I've ever had, even though it's not that unusual. I think it's pretty cool and for what it is. And I saw some of these in the German museums, so I was pretty excited when I got this in an old collection here in Chicago, in the U.S. So this one runs around $800-900, something like that. Then you get into the pottery of Corinth. So this is a bowl, and the Corinths usually, again, are going to be in the 6th century BC, and they do most of their work on pieces like, let me do this lightly here, most pieces like this called an arabellus. Now this one is actually fake. I don't believe this to be authentic, just based on the style, the look of the ceramic. It looks way too new to me. This came in a collection. I didn't sell it, so I don't really care, other than the fact that I'm not going to resell it. So, but this is typically what you'll get in the Corinthian areas. Now, what they usually do with their animals is they kind of elongate them. So you'll see on some of these where the animals are much longer, or you'll get the siren here that's much longer. That's typically what you'll see even on the arabelluses. And again, these are 6th century BC. Now, when you move into Athens, so this is a piece, I've showed this before, but this is an amazing piece. This is actually, so you can document specific painters to workshops. So this was done in 470 BC, and it's by the Harrow painter. This has actually been in several auctions. It was in some Christie sales, it was in Sotheby's sales, I think going all the way back to the mid-90s, something like that. It is put together from fragments, which is pretty unusual because the bigger they are, the better chance they have of breaking. So as long as something isn't in-painted, meaning that they didn't take this figure and redraw the beard, but they just filled in a crack. Filling a crack is okay. Filling in voided areas that haven't been touched is a big no-no. A piece like this is about a $45,000 to $50,000 vase. Attic pottery is much thinner in the way that it's produced. I can show you a piece like this. So here, this is also an attic cup, and you can see how thin the fabric is. When you get into some of the later 4th century, it gets much thicker and clumsier, but attic was really amazing for how they painted and also the different iconography that they used. It's really the highest form of art that you can find. This is an amazing thing. When you get into the South Italian provinces of the 4th century BC, this is mostly what you'll see on the market. You don't see a lot of attic on the market. You see some, but a lot of it's very unattainable. And The South Italian material is relatively inexpensive depending on what it is. So again, some of the artists can be, some of the workshops can be known based on the style of the piece. This is actually by the Baltimore painter, which is one of the more famous painters of the period. This is South Italian. So this is when the Greeks were running Italy, basically. You have different provinces that were producing different material at the time. So you had Apulia, Canossian, Daunian, Campanian, Lucanian. These are all provinces that were producing during the 4th and 3rd centuries BC. So this is named by the Baltimore painter. Why? Because there was a vase in the Walters Art Gallery in Baltimore, one of the largest ones that this particular workshop did, and so they named it the Baltimore painter because the vase was in Baltimore. So because this one's by the Baltimore painter, this is about a $7,500 piece, and it has the original lid also, so that makes it pretty unusual. You don't usually, a lot of times this is all you're going to get. So to actually have the original lid that goes along with it is pretty fantastic. This is a Lacanus, so it's another lidded vessel, and this has got hippocamps on it, which is a seahorse, half horse, half sea creature. And this is by the Darius Underworld painter. Again, this has been on display a couple places, was sold in auctions several places, and again, 4th century BC. And you can see when something is so well done and the detail is so amazing, you can figure out some of the workshops. Otherwise, it's almost impossible. This is another piece by, again, all three of these pieces are Apulian, and here you've got a satyr in just a plate. So, so you usually get, laurel pattern, and other details of foliage and things like that. Here, they always have palmettes. So you'll see palmettes being played over and over again, and vegetation and things like that. And always palmettes on the backside as well. Very kind of classic in the way that they do it. And also the pieces are painted in reverse. So this is actually the color of the vase, and they color the black around it and then paint in the details. And they're all fired on. So, so once they're fired, this paint lasts forever. And as long as Mother Earth was kind to it, it should be pristine throughout the whole, its whole existence. So moving on, this is Lucanian, and you can see this is called a Plique. And again, this is a little bit much different look than the Apulian vases. And so this is another area of South Italy that's quite interesting. This one actually had a pedigree going back to 1967. It was sold at Sotheby Park, Bernay, before it became Sotheby's, in 1967. I think in 67 it sold for $150. Now it's about a $5,000 or $6,000 vase. So if you bought a lot back then, you did quite well. So moving on, you can get into other Apulian or Magna Graecia pieces from South Italy. This one's actually ribbed, so that's actually done in the process when they were making it. They actually did this rib design and have this beautiful glaze on the piece. Also 4th century BC. Another province of South Italy is Daunian. This is a double-spouted ascos. It's basically a pouring vessel. What's really cool about this is you actually have the spout that is, it's got holes in it so that you can pour much easier and filter the piece out. And it has these really amazing designs on it, which is very common for Daunian pottery of the 4th century. Another province is Nathian. This is not so well done, but a lot of the Nathian pottery, as well as Canossian pottery, they added these whites on after firing. So a lot of time the white doesn't exist because it comes off, after thousands of years. So you can see a lot of the pot has lost some of its blackware on the piece. And these are supposed to emulate grapes hanging from vines. And this is called an onionocue, a trefoil pitched onionocue. And here, this is Canossian. So Canossian does the same thing. They add their colors after the fact. They use blues and pinks and reds, and you can see some of the original blues are still there. But it's not as vibrant as it once probably was back in the 4th century BC. And if I move into Roman, this is Carthaginian. So this is around 4th, 5th century AD. And you get these molded figures on here, animals. So there's a fish. And this is a really cool period. We get a lot of nice oil lamps from the Tunisian province, or Tunisia, modern Tunisia, which was Carthagena. And they use this red clay. And so you got kind of paganism ending and Christianity taking off. So you'll get a lot of pagan or Christianity on a lot of the lamps and pottery. And then finally, this is the piece that everybody sees all the time. So this is our Iron Age. A lot of them come out of the Middle East. Telemarketers used to buy these by the hundreds because they cost nothing and nobody wants them. And they would telemarket these things and charge. I've seen people charge as much as $800-900 for these things, even $1,200. They are not worth it. I would say $100, $150, maybe if you're lucky. But this is, it's 1,000-1,200 BC piece, but it's not very pretty, so it's not as desirable. So don't get taken. This is kind of starter stuff, but people will take advantage because it is so cheap, it is so old, and people think, well, it must be expensive. But as we all know in this business, age doesn't mean anything. It's supply and demand. So that's all I've got for you today. Hope you enjoyed.